Hey guys, tonight we're going back, way, way back, to the banks of the Nile, where the sun is scorching, the river glistens like melted gold, and the air is so thick with the smell of perfume, incense, and cooking lentils that you could practically slice it with a bronze butter knife. You've arrived in ancient Egypt. It's hot, it's humid, and honestly, you're probably not going to survive a day without scratching something. But don't worry. Tonight, we're here to drift gently through that dusty world, not sweat our way through it. We'll stroll through bustling markets full of glassy-eyed perfume sellers, visit queens who smell like frankincense and irritation, and discover how the Egyptians didn't just wear perfume to smell nice, but to survive. Insects, it turns out, were not fans of myrrh, and neither, for that matter, were evil spirits. So that's a bonus. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking through the open-air stalls of an ancient Egyptian market. It's not yet noon, but the heat is already doing what it does best, making everything feel just a bit too real. You smell roasted grains, sizzling onions, and, there it is, that strange powdery sweetness. You turn your head, and there's a woman behind a clay stand, pressing a glob of amber-colored resin into a mold shaped like a tiny god. Perfume. You're not alone in noticing. A half-dozen buzzing flies veer around it like it's cursed. They don't like the smell. Neither do the mosquitoes hovering nearby. Coincidence? Unlikely. You keep walking. The market is alive with texture. Linen fluttering, papyrus scrolls stacked like sleepy accordions, and always, always, that perfumed fog drifting on the wind. Sand crunches beneath your sandals as you pass another stall, this one shaded with a half-rotten palm frond and lined with tiny glass vials. Some are cloudy. Some shimmer in colors that don't seem entirely legal. You pick one up and bring it to your nose. Jasmine, but not the kind you're used to. It's earthy, resinous, almost spicy, like it wants to kiss you and bite you at the same time. You glance at the vendor, who gives a sly nod and mumbles something about scorpion season. You don't ask for details. Historians still argue whether these ancient scents were primarily for pleasure or protection. But in a land full of marshes, sweat, and tombs, sometimes all in the same square mile, it makes a strange sort of sense that the lines would blur. You duck under a swaying canopy made of woven reeds. Here, an older man grinds dried herbs with a stone pestle. Repellent oil, he grunts. You're not sure if he means it repels bugs or people, but then he flicks a finger toward your ankle, where a tiny red bump is beginning to swell. He dips his thumb into the paste and smears it on your skin. It smells like mint, garlic, and something bitter, possibly sorrow. The itch fades. You walk on. The air is thicker now, scented with burnt resin and, oddly, figs. You pass a young boy balancing a basket of lemons on his head, singing a song that sounds vaguely like a warning about lice. At the next stall, someone's burning myrrh. It coils upward in smoky spirals, carrying both a mystical presence and a low-grade eye sting. Across the street, a woman carries a jug of lotus oil on her head and walks with the kind of casual confidence that comes only from not currently being bitten by anything. You follow the scent trail, and it leads to a shaded corner where several people are gathered around a flat table. On it, tiny wooden boxes, each carved with hieroglyphs. Inside them, solid cones of something waxy and fragrant. One woman pinches the tip of a cone and sniffs. Another lifts her wig and positions it neatly at the crown of her scalp. You watch, quietly mesmerized, as the cone begins to melt slowly in the sun, releasing its scent, strong, musky, and oddly citrusy. Bug repellent? Perhaps. Sexy? Possibly. Overwhelming? Definitely. And yet, in this world, scent isn't just decoration. It's boundary, barrier, and sometimes even a blessing. The smell of mint might mark a healer. The smell of rose oil, a bride. And the smell of burnt cedar? Well, that probably means someone has a rodent problem and a high tolerance for smoke. You pass a man swatting at invisible pests with a fan made of ostrich feathers. He grumbles something about marsh season. You nod in solidarity. You're starting to understand. Everything here is layered, heat upon scent upon sound. You can't escape it. But maybe, just maybe, you can outscent it. So you dab a little oil behind your ear. Not because you want to smell nice, because the flies have returned and they look hungry. You wake, or at least continue dreaming, in the cool, shaded courtyard of a temple. The stone under your feet is warm but not hot, and the papyrus plants rustle faintly in the breeze, as if whispering secrets about ancient rituals and sandal gossip. Before you, a procession unfolds with the solemnity of divine performance, and just a touch of perfume-induced dizziness. You're attending a ritual in honor of the Apis bull, one of the most sacred creatures in Egypt. He is not your average cow. He's black, massive, adorned with sun discs, and if you squint just right, you can see a faint reflection of your awestruck face in his glossy, oiled hide. Yes, oiled. The priests are anointing him right now. Frankincense, myrrh, cedarwood, and perhaps something even more exotic, like cinnamon imported from a mysterious land across the sea. The mixture is thick, gleaming on their palms as they rub it across the Apis bull's back, legs, even around the base of his sacred ears. This isn't just about reverence. You notice that as the priests work, flies hesitate. They swirl in the heat, but they don't land. Not here. Not on him. The bull lets out a long exhale through his nostrils, almost approvingly. You're handed a small dab of the same oil. The scent is sharp, spicy, and oddly cooling. Your skin tingles slightly when you rub it into your forearm. It's ceremonial, sure, but also functional. The temple is built near a river marsh, and insects, especially mosquitoes, are fond of congregating here, as if they too worship at the altar of bovine divinity. But this divine aroma seems to hold them back. Historians still argue whether this perfumed ritual was truly designed with pest deterrence in mind, or if that was just a happy coincidence. Some say the oils were offerings to the gods, others claim they were used to protect sacred animals from disease-carrying insects. You suspect it's both. The line between holiness and hygiene is often thinner than a locust's wing. The priests move with rhythmic precision, chanting softly in a language you don't quite understand, but feel deep in your sternum. Their robes smell of crushed herbs, maybe basil, maybe mint. And you wonder if these scents serve to please the gods, or simply make their long workday more tolerable. You find a spot beside a half-sleeping cat, curled lazily on the temple steps, utterly unfazed by the spectacle. The cat's fur smells faintly of sandalwood, as if it soaked up the temple's collective perfume like a sleepy sponge. It stretches a paw toward your foot and blinks in slow approval. You're part of the ceremony now. The bull is led in slow circles around the altar, his oiled body shimmering in the light. He looks like a moving statue. Children toss flower petals in his path. You catch a few in your hair. They smell like marjoram and wild honey. And still, the flies keep their distance. You wonder if this particular recipe could be replicated in modern times. Imagine the shelves at your local store. Apis-approved oil for divine protection and mosquito prevention. A bestseller in the making. But here, in this sacred space, there's no marketing, only ritual. A bell rings softly, and the priests begin to fan the Apis bull with wide-leaf fans dipped in perfume. The scent fills the air like a second layer of weather. You inhale deeply. It's almost too much, but not quite. It carries with it not just the smell, but the feeling of safety, of reverence, of something older than language that still manages to soothe the nerves and, yes, keep the bugs at bay. Keep the bugs at komotatsu. One priest approaches with a shallow bowl filled with a dark oil. He dips a fingertip in and draws a small glyph on your wrist. It's a gesture of protection, perhaps. or maybe just a practical way to keep gnats from chewing on tourists. Either way, you smile politely, give a little bow, and back away. The ritual ends with a slow chant and the slow retreat of the sacred bull, who seems in no rush to leave the spotlight. He turns once, as if to show off his scent-drenched shoulders, then disappears into the shaded chambers beyond the altar. You linger in the courtyard a little longer, the smell of perfume still thick in the air. A dragonfly hovers by your ear, thinks better of it, and veers off toward the papyrus pool. Even the insects, it seems, respect the ritual. You trace your finger over the glyph on your wrist, now slightly tacky and still fragrant. In a place where perfume is not luxury but necessity, you begin to understand. Scent is survival. Scent is sacred. Scent is story. And here, under the sleepy gaze of a cat and the fading chants of priests, the story lingers in every breath. Your journey drifts now into the courtyard of a merchant's home, not grand, not humble, but unmistakably fragrant. You arrive just as the afternoon heat begins to curl the air into visible waves, and everyone who can afford not to move doesn't. Except for the smoke. It rises from a low clay brazier placed just outside the doorway. Inside the bowl, chunks of something resinous, frankincense perhaps, crackle gently. You sit on a low stool, the kind that leaves your knees unsure whether they're up or down, and lean in to smell. It's smoky, yes, but also lemony, peppery, and a little bit like pine needles if pine needles decided to become warm bread. A child of the house watches you sniff, grins with 2 missing teeth, and throws another piece of resin into the brazier with a flourish like she's feeding a pet dragon. The smoke thickens. It doesn't sting the eyes, though. It curls around the room like a polite guest. The smoke is not here just for ambiance. Frankincense was one of ancient Egypt's most treasured imports. It came from the land of Punt, a mysterious place no one can quite pinpoint on a modern map, despite scholars trying for decades. Historians still argue whether Punt was in East Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, or possibly even further afield. Wherever it was, it smelled amazing. You learn quickly that this burning resin was prized not just for religious ceremonies, though temples certainly used it in abundance, but also for more domestic, and slightly itchier, reasons. Mosquitoes hate it. So do flies, gnats, fleas, and, allegedly, crocodile hatchlings, though the evidence on that one is mainly anecdotal and probably best not tested. The merchant of this house, a woman with eyes like almonds and arms stained with dye, joins you on the stool. She gestures to the brazier. "Keeps the bad spirits out," she says in a tone that implies both ghosts and flies are equally rude. You watch her sprinkle a second substance into the coals, a darker, chunkier material. "Myrrh," she adds, noting your curious squint. "More bitter. Keeps out husbands, too." She winks. You laugh softly. The 2 scents mingle, becoming more than the sum of their parts. They smell holy, yes, but also strangely practical. You imagine someone thousands of years ago realizing that while incense pleased the gods, it also gave the household a break from scratching their ankles raw. Inside the house, linens are hung near the brazier. Not too close, but just enough to catch the scent. You run your fingers along one, coarse, warm, and infused with the faint perfume of wood smoke and citrus. It's not unpleasant. You picture laying your head down on that linen at night and drifting off to the smell of ancient forests burning politely in the distance. In the back room, a clay jar is opened. Inside is powdered resin, dry, flaky, and pale yellow. "For guests," the merchant says. She demonstrates by pinching some between her fingers and dusting it over your shoulders. It clings faintly to your skin, leaving behind a shimmer that smells a bit like earthy lemons wearing temple robes. Flies buzz the doorway but don't come in. One lands on the threshold, twitches once, and thinks better of it. The merchant's daughter now plays with a toy, some kind of wooden hippo on wheels. She's smeared a line of fragrant paste across the toy's head. Keeps the bad bugs off, she explains solemnly, as though she's been trained by the temple's finest. You look around and realize everything here is scented. The bed sheets, the door frame, even the cat curled up again has been gently dabbed with something floral and spicy. It stretches, yawns, and settles back into a nap, exhaling an oddly perfumed breath, possibly from licking too many myrrh-coated paws. The merchant hands you a small pouch. Take this with you, she says. Put it under your pillow. Dreams smell better that way. You thank her, stand, and notice that the smoke has subtly shifted. It follows you, lightly clinging to your tunic and hair, as if whispering, "No bites tonight." As you leave the courtyard, the sun begins its slow descent, casting the alleyways in long honey-colored shadows. A breeze stirs the city's rooftops, sending trails of incense spiraling upward into the violet sky. And somewhere in the distance, a mosquito reconsiders its life choices. The sun sinks lower now, tinting the Nile in glimmers of molten copper. You find yourself pulled, gently, like perfume clinging to fabric, into the private chambers of the palace. And here, dear Dreamwalker, is where we meet a man of supreme divinity and supreme discomfort, the pharaoh, or rather, you. Because tonight, in this soft-footed fantasy, you wear the cobra crown. You sit on the high-backed throne with one elbow resting lazily on an arm carved like a lion's leg, and you smell amazing. At least, you're supposed to. Sandalwood, lotus oil, blue lotus on the pulse points, crushed cinnamon down the neck, and a frankly gratuitous amount of frankincense smeared somewhere behind your ears. Your skin glistens like polished alabaster under the weight of sacred scent. You look divine. You also itch like mad. The heat inside the palace is oppressive, thick and languid, like syrup left too long in the sun. Though shaded and built from stone, the air sits heavy, and despite the open windows and strategically placed fans, small, opportunistic insects sneak in anyway. A servant passes by, trailing a peacock feather fan infused with lemon balm. It helps. For maybe 5 seconds. You shift your weight. There's a tiny, traitorous tickle just behind your left shoulder. You try to ignore it, try to channel the stillness of Ra himself, but it returns, insistent, mocking. You twitch your royal robes, which are soaked in aromatic oils, part cologne, part barrier. It was believed, after all, that scent shielded not just against evil spirits, but against more mundane torments, lice, midges, and whatever horrifying thing the Nile breeze decides to carry inland on a Tuesday afternoon. Historians still argue whether pharaohs were truly bug-free or simply good at hiding the urge to scratch under their wigs. Given your current predicament, you suspect the latter. A eunuch enters carrying a carved alabaster jar. You nod, and he approaches, uncorking the vessel with a soft pop. Inside is a salve made of beeswax, citronella, cedar oil, and powdered juniper. It smells like a forest. Took a deep breath and then tried to woo a spice merchant. The servant kneels and applies it gently to your ankles and wrists. Instantly, the air feels calmer. Something about the sharpness cuts through the fatigue. Still, the itching lingers, not just from the bugs, but from the weight of attention. You are Pharaoh, yes, but pharaohs cannot swat. You glance at a wall carving. It depicts a past ruler, the great Amenhotep, holding a staff in one hand and standing triumphantly atop a line of defeated enemies. What the engraving doesn't show is the invisible cloud of mosquitoes he's probably enduring during that victory pose. And then, like divine mercy, your royal perfumer arrives. He's older than sand, hunched like a question mark, but his nose is legendary. He bows low and presents 3 options on a tray. 1 scent for elegance, 1 for sleep, and 1 for uninvited creatures. You choose the latter. He nods knowingly. This one's for the marsh, he murmurs, rubbing the oil between his fingers. He applies it beneath your chin and behind your ears. The sensation is immediately soothing, and for a blissful moment, you forget the crawlies. You forget the humidity. You almost forget the paperwork waiting on your golden desk. Almost. The oil is made from a blend of crushed mint, henna, and a local root whose name roughly translates to fly don't like. It's been steeped for a moon cycle and sealed in fish-skin bottles to keep it potent. The perfumer mutters a blessing as he works. Not quite magic, not quite science. Something in between. You recline. A breeze stirs the linen drapes, and the scent of the oil wafts upward. Even the shadows seem to relax. Outside, birds call in soft descending notes, and inside, the palace falls into a hush that can only mean the mosquitoes have gone elsewhere, perhaps to bother a lesser noble. A small silver mirror reflects your face. You look serene, regal, not a single bite in sight. But your eyes betray it. They say, "One more buzz near my temple, and I'm declaring war." The perfumer bows once more and leaves. You close your eyes, and the perfumes, layered now like armor, settle over you like an invisible cloak. Beneath it, you are not just ruler, but human. You itch, you sweat, you breathe. But for tonight, you are safe. The scents protect you. And in a palace where gods walk in dreams and flies dare not land, that's more than enough. You're not entirely sure how you got here. But now you're standing in what can only be described as a surprisingly elegant apothecary of questionable hygiene standards. The room is cool, sun-dappled through high slits in the mud brick walls, and lined with clay jars, reed baskets, and shelves packed with small bundles tied in palm fiber string. And then, there it is. Right on the central work table, in a shallow dish of polished obsidian, sits the most concerning substance you've seen so far tonight. Crocodile dung. Fresh? Possibly. Fragrant? Absolutely not. And yet, the perfumer working at this humble station, an elderly woman with a shock of silver hair and a grin like she knows things you don't, dips a wooden pestle into the paste as casually as if she were stirring date jam. "Very effective," she says, not looking up. "For flies. And sometimes marriages." You blink. She gestures for you to sit. You do, carefully avoiding a small bowl filled with what looks like dried lizard tails, and another with crushed blue lotus petals. The room smells oddly floral, if the flowers were also slightly burnt and lived in a swamp. You're here to learn, or at least to not make the mistake of laughing at sacred recipes. The perfumer begins her demonstration. Into a large stone mortar, she adds myrrh resin, a generous pinch of ground cinnamon bark, and a splash of castor oil, which, as it turns out, was a beloved base for many Egyptian perfumes. Thick, sticky, and long-lasting. Unfortunately, it also smelled like burnt rubber and goat spit, until mixed with enough fragrant botanicals to mask its more aggressive tendencies. Historians still argue whether these perfumes were made primarily for aesthetic pleasure, religious significance, or medicinal and practical needs like pest control. But when crocodile excrement makes the ingredients list, you can assume a bit of practicality was involved. Next, she adds something dark and crumbly. "Incinerated bees," she says cheerfully, "for preservation, and because bugs don't like bug smoke." You do your best to look interested rather than nauseous. She pounds the mixture slowly, rhythmically, humming as she works. The mortar releases its scent gradually, and to your utter surprise, it starts to smell good. Not modern good, but ancient good. Like survival and reverence stirred into one. Once the mixture becomes a smooth, paste-like consistency, she scoops a small amount onto a flat shell and holds it out. Apply a little to the neck and inner elbows. Bugs stay away, also husbands. That joke again. You dab some onto your skin. It's gritty and warm from the sun and oddly soothing. The smell is sharp at first, but then mellows into something herbal and spicy, almost comforting. You'd wear this camping, or to a cursed tomb, possibly both. Outside the shop, you hear children running, laughing, a donkey brays in protest, and through it all, the ever-present drone of flies fades, at least near this doorway. Coincidence? Unlikely. You ask about other ingredients. She pulls out a pouch of powdered galbanum, an odd-smelling gum that supposedly offends every insect on the Nile. Then she points to a tall, thin jar sealed with beeswax. That one's sacred, only opened for weddings or infestations. You don't ask which one is more common. She tells you that the priests up north use similar recipes, minus the dung, of course, too refined, too proper. But out here, in the real Egypt, where marsh meets market, people do what works. You nod in understanding. In a world of crocodiles, floods, and swarms of flying irritation, you can't afford to be squeamish. The perfumer packs a tiny vial of the mixture into a leather pouch and hands it to you. "For the road," she says, "and the next time you sleep near reeds." You leave with gratitude and a lingering sense of awe, and a faint but growing desire to wash your hands in lemon water. Outside, the sun is tipping toward late afternoon, casting gold on the dusty alley. You pass a family gathered near a brazier, burning what you now recognize as mosquito-repelling incense. A woman waves a bundle of herbs through the smoke and pats it gently on her son's arms. You look at your little crocodile paste charm and smile. In a place where sacred cows are oiled, gods are perfumed, and dung is weaponized against insects, the line between elegance and utility blurs in a beautifully human way. And honestly, you're starting to see the genius in it. Your path now drifts through stillness, quiet stone corridors that wind downward into coolness. You descend slowly, led only by the faint glow of torchlight and the faraway scent of incense that seems to breathe from the walls themselves. The deeper you go, the quieter the world becomes, until, at last, you step into a tomb. But not just any tomb. This one has been sealed for centuries, its contents left untouched, except by time and, oddly enough, a certain lingering smell. You inhale deeply. There it is, a faint aroma, resinous, sweet, ancient, not the musty rot you expected from death, but something preserved. A ghost of perfume, still clinging to the air like a whispered goodbye. You raise your torch higher and see them, rows of canopic jars, alabaster and carnelian, each etched with hieroglyphs. But it's the amphorae in the corner that draw your eye, sealed with wax, some still intact, and marked with symbols that suggest what they once held. Oils, perfumes, perhaps protection. You crack one open. It hisses softly, as if relieved to be free. The scent is unmistakable. Lotus, myrrh, and something darker. Perhaps patchouli or labdanum. It's thick and heady, like a dream laced with secrets. Not only has it survived, but it's still powerful. You imagine the hands that once poured it, delicately with reverence, over linen-wrapped limbs, or onto the stones around the sarcophagus. Perfume in tombs served many purposes: symbolic, practical, and possibly spiritual. Historians still debate the primary reason. Were these oils meant to mask the odor of decay, or to help guide the soul with pleasing scents into the afterlife? Or both? You crouch beside the amphorae and consider. In a culture that saw scent as sacred, even death was perfumed. The walls are painted with scenes of daily life: fishing, feasting, gardening, and next to them, lines of script telling the journey of the soul. You run your fingers along one painted figure, a woman in white, holding a cone of scented wax to her head, smiling. Eternal rest, it seems, comes with aromatherapy. You drift past the sarcophagus. It's massive, ornate, but not threatening. You half expect it to whisper, "Please apply cedar oil before opening." Instead, you notice something else. Faint traces of scent near the corners, likely where oils were poured during the burial rites. This wasn't a rushed funeral. This was a process, deliberate and infused with ritual. The perfume wasn't an afterthought. It was a guardian. And maybe a repellent. Here's the thing. The tomb is surprisingly insect-free. No buzzing, no skittering. Even centuries later, the residue of incense and oil might still be keeping intruders at bay. A soft chemical legacy. You settle on a low bench, stone, with faded carvings. The torch flickers. The scent lingers. You imagine what this tomb smelled like the day it was sealed. Overwhelmingly floral, spiced with cloves, a bit too enthusiastic with the myrrh. They would have used it in layers. First, anointing the body, then the wrappings, then the tomb itself. Oils were poured into ceremonial grooves in the floor. Burners were lit and sealed inside. It wasn't just about preservation. It was about control. Control of scent. Control of space. Control of the narrative that would follow the soul into eternity. You glance upward. The ceiling is dotted with stars, painted in gold and faded cobalt. Even here, even in death, the Egyptians brought the sky indoors. You think of all those tombs lost to time, their oils long evaporated, their perfumes swallowed by sand. But this one, this tomb, you've caught mid-breath. And still, no flies. You close your eyes and let the scent carry you. It's not just aroma, it's atmosphere. A capsule of memory. You feel transported, not backward but inward, as if the perfume has written itself into your lungs and now tells you its own version of the story. One where the dead rest sweetly, surrounded by the oils they trusted to protect them. A gentle shuffling sound. You open one eye. It's a cat, or perhaps something cat-adjacent, slinking silently across the floor with the confidence of someone who's seen 30 dynasties come and go. It stops beside the sarcophagus, curls its tail around its feet, and exhales. You swear the puff of air smells like cassia bark. You smile. In the end, this tomb is not a place of fear. It's not even particularly grim. It's a reminder that the ancient Egyptians didn't fear death. They perfumed it. They prepared for it. They made it smell good enough to stay in forever. You lean back against the stone bench. The air is still cool, still fragrant, still peaceful. You're back above ground now, blinking in the gentle brightness of early evening, when the sun softens and shadows stretch like lazy cats. The air is warm, not oppressive, and scented with something sweeter, perhaps hibiscus, perhaps honey. You follow a procession, weaving its way through a narrow colonnade, past polished columns painted with lotus blossoms. The footsteps ahead are deliberate but not hurried. They belong to servants, all dressed in white linen, bearing trays and fans. At the center of it all is one woman. You can't help but notice her. She walks with a grace that borders on theatrical. Her black wig is impeccably braided, and atop it, balanced with startling precision, is something that looks like a delicate, upside-down teardrop. A perfumed cone. It's slowly melting. You watch, entranced, as a translucent trickle of scented wax runs down her hair, catching in the fibers, releasing the aroma of blue lotus, cinnamon, and sweet marjoram as it warms to her skin. The effect is captivating. Each step she takes releases more scent, not a cloud, but a halo. The air around her becomes noticeably bug-free. This isn't a coincidence. The perfumed cone isn't just fashion, it's function. Historians still discuss whether these wax cones were real, symbolic, or perhaps used only on special occasions. But wall paintings don't lie. Over and over again, you see figures with the telltale shape atop their wigs. Sometimes men, often women, always among company. Tonight, you are part of that company. The woman and her entourage settle into a shaded garden pavilion near a pool. Papyrus rustles, frogs chirp. A mosquito dares to approach and is immediately dissuaded by a casual flick of her fan, woven from reeds and dabbed in something sharp-smelling and herbal. A younger attendant approaches her and holds a small clay dish beneath her chin. She leans forward, allowing a single drop of oil to fall from the tip of the wax cone into the dish. The attendant stoppers it and slips away. The scent continues to release, imperceptibly, constantly. You take a seat nearby. The breeze carries hints of different oils now: jasmine, cassia, even a touch of eucalyptus. Around the group, other guests wear cones as well, each one tailored to their status or function. One nobleman's cone is rich and smoky, probably packed with myrrh and patchouli. Another smells like lemons and dried mint. A practical blend, likely the equivalent of sitting near someone who always brings the bug spray to the picnic. You lean back against a palm-carved bench and exhale. The garden is full of subtle movements. A servant lighting a citronella brazier, another brushing oil along the rim of a wine cup, children tossing scented petals into the air and squealing when they stick to skin. Everything here smells good. Everything is deliberate. Even the torches being lit as twilight deepens are perfumed. They crackle with dried herbs tied into the bundles of wood. The woman with the perfumed cone notices your gaze and offers a knowing smile. She gestures to an empty cone resting in a nearby dish. You reach for it. It's slightly soft, already warming in your palm. A servant helps you press it gently to the crown of your head, just atop your own wig, which, to your surprise, has been subtly scented too. The wax starts to melt immediately. A drop rolls down behind your ear. It's cool at first, then warm, then gone, but in its place, a soft aroma that makes the air seem thicker, softer, safer. A mosquito hovers nearby and pivots sharply in another direction. You close your eyes. Historians still can't agree on the exact recipe for these cones. Some say animal fat, others claim hardened oils, beeswax, or some combination. They were filled with crushed flowers, tree resins, and the rarest imported herbs. Whatever the truth, you know this much. It works. And it's luxurious. You stay there, in the pavilion, long after the sun slips away. Oil lamps are lit. Musicians begin to play something soft and stringed. You hear the clink of perfume vials being opened, passed from hand to hand. The scents layer atop one another, floral, herbal, woody, and sweet. Like a lullaby you can breathe. You are no longer a visitor. You are part of this olfactory symphony. And the bugs? Not even brave enough to interrupt. You remain in the garden long enough for the scent cone on your head to fully dissolve, leaving behind a faint sheen on your wig and a deeply ingrained fragrance that seems to cling to your very thoughts. As the last rays of daylight fade, you're guided inside, along with the others, into the interior of a grand banquet hall. The scent of roasted duck and honeyed dates greets you, but that's not the main event. No, this isn't just a dinner. It's a sensory performance, and every guest here is wearing their best fragrance, their most effective bug deterrents, and their widest, most perfumed wigs. It's time to swat in style. You take a seat on a cushioned divan, low to the floor and scattered with embroidered linens that smell like they've been steeped in rose water and lime leaves. At your elbow, a servant refills your cup with pomegranate wine, cool, tart, and lightly infused with crushed basil, possibly to keep fruit flies at bay. You take a sip and notice the absence of the usual swarm of buzzing intruders. Curious. The host of the evening, a stout man with a laugh as wide as the Nile, claps his hands. From behind silk-draped doors, a group of attendants enter with trays. On each one, delicate ceramic bowls holding fresh perfume pastes. As they pass through the room, each guest reaches out and dabs a finger into the mixture, applying it to their arms, their throats, their temples. The room blooms with scent. Yours smells like saffron and lemongrass. The woman beside you smells of cardamom and fig. Across the way, someone's chosen a heady clove blend that makes your nose tingle. This isn't just self-care, it's strategy. You notice something else too. Each fan waving in the room is scented. Not just any fan, mind you. These are peacock feathers dipped in oils and dried petals, sometimes embedded with strips of cinnamon bark. With every gentle wave, they release tiny gusts of scented air that keep the insects guessing and repelled. Historians still speculate on just how common this practice was. Did every household in Thebes possess a perfumed fan? Or was this luxury reserved for those with status, with spice traders on speed dial? The answer, as always, is somewhere in between. You lean back, watching dancers move through the space like reeds in river current. Even they wear oils, chosen not only for seduction but also for function. Lavender near the ankles, mint along the wrists. One dancer twirls and flicks a silk ribbon trailing vaporized perfume. The audience applauds not just the performance but the absence of mosquito bites. A servant approaches your table carrying small folded cloths soaked in scented water. You unfold one and wipe your hands. It's cool, fragrant, and slightly bitter. Citron, maybe with crushed marigold petals. Your skin tingles pleasantly. A beetle skitters toward the edge of the mat and then veers sharply away, like it's just remembered an urgent appointment elsewhere. The feast continues with trays of lentil stew, roasted onions, and figs glazed with vinegar and honey. Even the food smells defensive, spices chosen as much for their deterrent properties as their taste. Ancient cookbooks, theoretically, they were mostly oral, may not have listed keeps bugs away as an ingredient feature, but it's a clear side effect. The host's wife makes her entrance late, trailing a cloud of perfume so complex it smells like at least 7 different continents had to collaborate. Her sleeves shimmer with oil-treated embroidery. The space around her clears, as if the air itself is making room. And just then, you hear it. A lone, determined mosquito. Buzzing. Hovering. It moves toward the center of the room, drawn in by the warmth, the light, the movement. You watch the collective tension as it dances through the air, making its way toward someone's exposed shoulder. And then, thwap. A man in the back, dignified in his draped linen robes, swats it with a scented handkerchief. No mess, no panic, just a raised eyebrow and a faint waft of cinnamon. The room exhales, half in amusement, half in relief. You sip your wine again. The breeze carries more layered scent. Coriander, burnt thyme, something floral you can't quite place. The night continues, slow and golden, full of laughter and subtle gestures. A guest near you sprinkles dried lavender petals onto their lap. Another rubs orange peel onto their wrist. The dance between aroma and intention continues. You rest your elbow on the cushion, your head beginning to grow heavier, not with discomfort, but with ease. The oils on your skin still smell fresh. No bites, no stings. Just the sweet assurance that tonight, even in the warm Egyptian dark, you are protected by a symphony of scent. And somewhere in the shadows, the bugs are having a very disappointing evening. The banquet winds down, and the guests begin to drift back out into the warm evening air, bellies full and heads pleasantly fuzzy with wine, scent, and story. You follow, weaving your way through slender sandstone corridors until you emerge once again onto the streets of Thebes. It's night now, but Thebes doesn't sleep. It exhales. You're in a quieter quarter of the city now, where homes line narrow alleys and the scent of crushed herbs lingers beneath every doorstep. The stars blink gently overhead, reflected in puddles where water has just been poured to cool the dust. A lazy breeze carries smells of tamarisk and faint wood smoke, and something sweet and spicy drifting from the open windows of an apothecary still doing business by lamplight. You pause, nose first. Scent has become your compass. This street, you realize, isn't just part of the city. It's an olfactory map. Each doorway leads not only to a home, but to a different strategy for keeping pests at bay. You pass a window draped with linen soaked in rosemary water, fluttering faintly and emitting a sharp, bracing smell. A few paces on, you catch the rich aroma of clove-studded oranges, arranged in shallow bowls outside a threshold. Primitive pomanders, keeping flies and bad fortune alike from stepping inside. A woman is sweeping her doorstep with a broom made of stiff reeds tied with string. As she moves, you realize the broom itself is scented, infused with oil, maybe mint or pennyroyal. Every sweep leaves behind a sharp, clean smell that rolls ahead of her like a protective wave. She notices you and offers a tired but friendly smile. "The bugs bite less when the house smells nice," she says, then adds, "and the neighbors complain less too." Further along, a small boy plays with a wooden top in the dusty alley. He has a smudge of something shiny behind each ear, and as he spins the toy, he mutters a rhyme that includes a line about keeping beetles off your elbows. Historians still debate whether these daily perfuming habits were taught formally or simply passed along in whispers between generations. There's no surviving etiquette book labeled Scenting for Street Survival, but based on what you're witnessing, it absolutely could have existed. You pass a public water station where someone is rinsing linen in a shallow basin. Floating in the water, sprigs of basil, bits of dried lime peel, and flower petals. The rinsed fabric is wrung out and hung over a balcony to dry, catching the breeze and leaving a trace of fragrance for the whole block. As you stroll deeper into the city's fragrant arteries, you begin to recognize a rhythm. Incense wafts from homes at regular intervals. Oil lamps are refilled with herbed mixtures. Even stray cats appear better scented than some royalty you've met. One household has hung bundles of thyme and sage over its doorframe, tied with string and interwoven with dried reeds. Another has a shallow dish of vinegar and chamomile placed just beneath a window, both to sweeten the air and discourage the ever-curious flies. You stop before a tiny shop, closed for the night, but still glowing faintly. Through the slats of its wooden shutters, you catch glimpses of shelves packed with ceramic bottles, each labeled in looping, careful script. A dangling charm in the shape of a fly swings gently above the doorway. An amulet. The fly amulet, you recall, had once been a reward in battle, a badge of honor. But among the common folk, smaller versions were worn around the neck or tied into belts, not as symbols of victory, but as charms of protection. Some believed the image of a fly could keep real flies away, a kind of visual decoy. Others whispered it was a prayer in silver. You look up and see dozens of them, scattered like forgotten stars across windows and doorways. Some carved, some molded, a few even painted with gold leaf. You pause beside a shallow fountain, dipping your fingers into the water. It's cool, and smells faintly of marigold. The city seems quieter here, as though wrapped in its own fragrant sigh. A candle flickers in a nearby window, its flame dancing over a bowl of crushed fennel seeds, casting shadows shaped like petals. You sit, you inhale, and you listen, not with your ears, but your skin. The streets of Thebes are scented not for show, but for survival, against heat, against bugs, against whatever misfortunes the Nile might wash up next. This is a city that knows how to blend beauty with necessity. A city that understands the difference between smelling nice and smelling safe. You've wandered far from the feasting halls and sleepy alleys now, drawn onward by scent and curiosity alike. The night deepens, and the city's heartbeat slows. But you find yourself at the base of something far more ancient, far more massive. A temple. Its gates are half open, as if waiting for late arrivals or restless souls like yourself. You step inside. The coolness strikes first. Stone holding on to the chill of night like a secret. Then comes the scent. It's not one smell, but many. Incense, oil, sweat, candle wax, and age itself. And beneath all that, a distinct thread of cinnamon. Sweet, warm, and strangely divine. You follow it. Inside, a priest moves silently between columns the size of elephant herds, his linen robes barely whispering against the floor. He carries a small bronze tray, and on it rests a shallow bowl with smoldering embers. You hear a faint crackle as he sprinkles something over it. Thin, curled shavings the color of rust, cinnamon bark. The smoke that rises is gentle, almost bashful, like it knows it doesn't need to try too hard to be important. The scent floats into the temple's far corners, blending with the residual myrrh and frankincense from earlier rituals. It smells holy and oddly familiar. The priest doesn't look at you. He doesn't need to. You're not really there, not fully. You're a shadow slipping through memory. And here, memory smells of spice. Statues loom in the half-light. Gods and goddesses. Animals with human bodies, humans with animal heads. Most are darkened with centuries of oil applications. Their surfaces shine where hands have touched and priests have anointed. You approach a massive figure, Horus, the falcon-headed sky god. At his feet sits a shallow basin, and beside it, a jar. You open it. Inside, a thick paste of oil and ground herbs. Cinnamon again, but also cardamom, perhaps a trace of balsam. You scoop a fingertip's worth and press it gently onto the statue's base, just where so many hands before yours have done the same. The room smells sharper now. Richer. Alive. In ancient Egypt, scent was more than an offering. It was language. To anoint a god was to speak in aroma, to declare reverence, to ask for protection, favor, rain, or sometimes just a night free of ankle bites. Historians still puzzle over the exact recipes used in temples. Some formulas were guarded like treasure, passed only to high priests. Others may have been forgotten entirely, their last notes lost in the smoke of offerings long since turned to ash. But cinnamon endures. It was expensive, imported, possibly from India or Ceylon. That it was used so liberally in temples speaks to its power, not just as an olfactory pleasure, but as a deterrent. Flies hated it, so did lice. And some said that evil spirits, particularly the small annoying ones, couldn't stand the scent. You wander deeper into the inner sanctum. The air thickens. Sconces along the wall burn slowly with oil lamps, and every few feet, a tiny pile of something aromatic smolders gently on the floor. One mound releases cedar smoke, another labdanum, another something you can't quite place. Warm and animalic, like the breath of a tiger that's been chewing cloves. You reach a small chamber, square and unassuming, but alive with scent. The walls are painted with offerings, baskets of figs, jars of beer, and always, vials of oil. On one wall, a depiction of a high priest applying perfume to a seated god. On another, a giant lotus blossom, exhaling visible scent, trails into the air like musical notes. A servant enters quietly behind you, carrying a wide bronze fan. With each sweep, the fan wafts scented air into the chamber. It's laced with thyme, marjoram, maybe a hint of date vinegar. Even the fan itself has been soaked in oil. This is a space not just of prayer, but of purification. Even the air must be clean. Even the bugs must be banished. You sit on a low stool near the door and feel the weight of stillness pressing gently against your shoulders. It's not heavy, though. It's protective. The air seems to hum with perfume and peace. You realize you haven't swatted in hours. You haven't felt a tickle or heard a buzz. Not here. Not in the house of cinnamon gods. The priest returns, carrying a small vessel. He places it on a pedestal near the statue. The lid is lifted. Steam curls out, and with it a fragrance you've never quite smelled before. Sweet, spicy, and faintly bitter, like joy wrapped in old parchment. You close your eyes. The scent becomes the room. The room becomes the dream. And the dream becomes silence. And still, the bugs stay away. You step outside the temple slowly, blinking as the deep hush gives way to the softer sounds of night. Sandals scraping stone, the occasional clink of pottery, and the whispery swish of linen robes. You are not alone. Others wander Thebes tonight, seeking cool air, quiet company, or simply space to think. You pass a group of merchants seated around a low table, laughing gently as they sip something sweet and steaming. You linger, curious, and the smell hits you first. Not food exactly, though there's a basket of honey-drenched pastries in the middle, but herbs. Strong ones. The scent of mint rises from a cup as one man stirs it. Another has what smells distinctly like coriander and garlic smeared in oil on his hands, possibly leftover from some kitchen experiment, Or maybe, you suspect, an unorthodox strategy for keeping flies away. It seems to work. You're invited to sit. You do. They're oil merchants, it turns out. Traders of the fragrant and the functional. One pulls a small wooden box from under the bench and opens it. Inside are 8 tiny vials. Glass and clay, some corked, some wax sealed. He lifts one and offers it to you. You unstopper it. Citrus. Sharp and clean. Lemongrass, perhaps, with a touch of something else, something peppery. He nods approvingly. That's for swamp flies, he says. They hate this, even more than priests hate cheap incense. The others chuckle. You're past another vial. This one is floral, delicate, almost translucent in scent. Hibiscus, honey, and a pinch of catnip, the merchant says. Very calming. Bugs don't like calm. A third vial smells like burnt sugar and thyme. You pause, considering it. For scorpions, he says, tapping the rim of the bottle. Rub it on doorframes, or sandals. Historians still explore the scale of perfume production in ancient Egypt. Whether these traders traveled far with their wares or simply catered to the neighborhood gods and gossipers. Some evidence suggests they were surprisingly scientific about it. Recipes written in ink, ratios of oil to herb to resin recorded in neat columns, though much has been lost to time, weather, and mice with unexpectedly expensive taste. The merchant with the coriander-smeared hands holds up a small disc made of clay, etched with symbols. This is our mark, he says. We leave it with every bottle, so the buyer remembers who kept their legs bite-free during marsh season. A scented calling card. You lean back, watching the way they pass vials between them, smell testing, comparing, debating. They speak of supply routes and scent layering, how too much cinnamon repels bugs and friends, and which oils travel best in the heat. You learn that lotus oil ferments if left in direct sunlight too long, and that a well-blended mix should last 12 days sealed, and 6 if worn on a sweaty priest. Someone points at your arm. You've forgotten. You're still lightly shimmering from the wax cone, and the scent has evolved. It now smells less like a banquet and more like something herbal, medicinal, but still pleasant. The merchants nod in approval. You're wearing field oil, one says. Keeps flies and other people's drama away. You smile. From across the alley, another merchant arrives, wheeling a cart of tiny clay pots. He announces his wares with a sleepy voice. Oils for lovers, for travelers, for sleepers, and for ants in your blankets. The men around you groan and laugh. They know him. You walk over and sniff a few samples. One smells like vinegar and pine. The label reads, for tents and boats. Another smells like pure basil, strong, almost aggressive. For sandals and servants, the label says. But your favorite is simple. A blend of rose, mint, and what might be bay leaf. No label. Just a smile from the cart seller who says, that one's for peaceful dreams. You buy a pot and slip it into your satchel. The oil merchants pack up slowly, chatting, stretching, sharing one last cup of sweet mint infusion. You leave them there, stepping quietly into the streets again, feeling protected by your small vial of sleep-scented peace. The air is cooler now, and softer. The breeze smells faintly of tamarind and firewood. No bugs, no bites. Just the calm of night and the knowledge that somewhere in these stone-wrapped streets, people have been fighting pests with perfume for thousands of years, and winning with style. You drift further from the heart of the city now, lured by the rhythmic slosh of water and the distant creak of wooden joints. The Nile lies ahead, broad, gleaming under the moonlight, soft waves nudging gently at the reeds. A reed boat waits for you at the dock. Long and narrow, tied together with ropes that creak like sleepy bones, it sways with an invitation. You climb aboard, the deck lined with woven mats that smell faintly of lemon balm and sun-baked reeds. As the boat pushes off, the scent of the river greets you, earthy, wet, a little fishy, and more alive than you expect. You are not alone. There are 2 others on the boat, a boatman with arms like braided rope, and a young woman sitting cross-legged in the bow, gently fanning herself with a square of papyrus. She nods at you, then dips her fan into a small bowl of oil and resumes. With every flick of her wrist, the boat's air changes. She's using scented oil to keep the bugs away. And as it turns out, so is the boat itself. You crouch down and run your hand along the edge. The ropes have been rubbed with something thick and waxy. Marsh blend, the boatman grunts. Keeps the flies from laying eggs in the cord. You raise an eyebrow. He grins. Also keeps passengers from jumping into the river. The breeze picks up, carrying the scent of tamarisk trees on the far bank and the unmistakable perfume of crushed mint from the cargo behind you. Large clay jars are stacked neatly, sealed with wax and labeled in charcoal script. One reads, "For night voyages." Another, "Mosquito blend. Do not open in daylight." You crack the lid on a smaller jar nearby. Instantly, the smell of camphor hits your nose. Sharp, clean, and medicinal. The young woman leans over and smiles. "My father makes that. Works better than prayers." You laugh softly. Historians still wonder how far the Egyptians went in integrating scent into daily travel. While temples and tombs often steal the spotlight, the humble reed boat was its own floating ecosystem, and anything floating through marshland needed protection. Pests were no joke here. Some carried disease. Others simply annoyed the spirit right out of you. You glance down at the water. Dragonflies skim the surface. A frog plops from a lily pad, and just above your shoulder, a lone mosquito veers toward you, only to swerve away mid-flight, as if reconsidering all its life choices. You're grateful for the scent trail the boat leaves behind. The river narrows a little, reeds closing in like shy onlookers. The boatman spits over the side and mutters something about marsh breath. The young woman uncorks another vial of oil and dabs it behind each ear. She offers it to you. You accept. It smells like clove, peppermint, and something minty sweet, possibly sweet flagroot, a known ingredient for calming nerves and repelling midges. You rub it into your neck and feel instantly refreshed. You close your eyes and let the boat rock you. The creaking of rope, the soft lap of water, the occasional call of a distant bird, it's hypnotic. You begin to imagine what river life must have been like in this world. Traders floating between cities, priests transporting sacred items, lovers sneaking away from crowded Thebes for a quiet ride beneath the stars, all scented to the heavens and back, because even romance can be ruined by a swarm of no-see-ums. The woman hums quietly, and you recognize it as a tune you heard earlier in the marketplace, a rhyme about oils and river spirits. You ask her about it. She nods. "We sing it when we rub oil on the boat. The river listens, so do the bugs." You pass by a reed hut tucked near the bank. A single oil lamp glows inside, its flame dancing through a screen of smoldering herbs. Smoke curls upward, and even from this distance you can tell, whoever lives there knows how to keep a mosquito net scented and sacred. The boatman ties a small amulet to the front post of the boat, a carved fly, its wings spread. "Keeps the real ones off," he mutters. "And if not, at least gives them something to aim for." The ride continues, slow and steady. The oil-soaked ropes, the scented fans, the aromatic jars, they all play their part in making this boat a floating perfume bottle of safety and calm. Not luxurious, not ceremonial, but deeply, beautifully practical. The boat finally bumps gently against a wooden dock shaded by palms. You disembark slowly, inhaling one last lungful of that river-sweet, oil-brushed air. No bites, no stings, just the memory of motion, moonlight, and perfume. And maybe, just maybe, the ghost of a mosquito with really good taste deciding to move on. You step onto dry land again with your feet still rocking slightly from the rhythm of the river. Ahead lies a villa, grand, sun-bleached, and framed by groves of sycamore fig trees and tall date palms. The air is still warm, but here, shaded by the garden walls, it feels softer. You follow a path lined with smooth stones, and almost immediately, the scent hits you. It's a garden of repellent delights. Lush and green, but curated with more intention than beauty alone. Everything planted here seems to serve a purpose. Many of them, you suspect, highly aromatic and highly annoying to insects. Marigolds cluster around the perimeter, their pungent petals practically waving off any unwanted winged guests. Basil grows thick near the benches. Lemongrass waves gently in the breeze. You swear you catch a whiff of citronella, though the Egyptians didn't call it that, of course. A gardener hums softly as she works, her fingers darkened from constant contact with oils and crushed stems. She waves at you, not stopping her weeding. Be careful near the mint, she warns with a smile. The bees like it more than the mosquitoes hate it. You nod. The garden isn't just a place of scent, it's a strategy. You walk along a pathway of terracotta tiles, feeling the coolness seep up through your soles. Each plant has its place. Rue and sage near the walls, to keep pests from climbing into the villa. Aloe growing in pots near doorways, both soothing and symbolic. Crushed bay leaves sprinkled on the ground beneath shaded resting spots. In the center stands a shallow fountain, gurgling gently, surrounded by flowering herbs. You sit on its low stone edge and breathe deeply. There's something sleepy about this space, not from fatigue, but from how complete it feels. As if even the bugs have accepted they're not welcome and gone in search of more lenient terrain. A servant approaches quietly, offering you a damp cloth scented with rose and mint. You wipe your hands and face, and the scent clings to your skin like cool armor. Nearby, children chase one another through the pepper bushes, laughing, while their mother watches with a bundle of thyme tucked into her belt like a subtle warning. You stand and wander deeper into the garden. Under a fig tree, an older man tends to what appears to be a patch of Egyptian lavender, taller, a bit more unruly than the type you know. He trims the stalks carefully and places the clippings into a reed basket, which already holds bundles of wormwood, fenugreek, and something sharply citrusy. You ask him what it's for. Pillow stuffing, he says without looking up. Keeps the bugs out of your ears at night. You don't laugh. You've seen too much. He adds with a grin, also helps with dreams, unless the wormwood ratio's off. Then you see goats doing backflips. You leave him to his harvest and turn toward a pergola draped in vines. Beneath it, low couches are arranged around incense burners, unlit for now. Small ceramic bowls are tucked beneath the furniture, each filled with a different blend of herbs. Crushed marjoram, ground clove, a paste made from honey and garlic. Unorthodox, yes, but effective. Historians still question how much ancient Egyptians understood about plant chemistry, but gardens like this seem to answer the question themselves. This wasn't random planting. This was engineering with roots. A small dog trots past you wearing a thin leather collar. As it passes, you notice it smells faintly of sage and, of all things, cumin. Someone has oiled the pets. You don't blame them. You recline on one of the shaded couches. A breeze stirs the air, carrying with it the mingled aromas of the garden. Every inhale feels like a defensive spell, a breath steeped in intention. A pair of doves coo softly from the rafters. Somewhere, someone starts humming the oil blessing tune again. You realize this garden isn't just for fragrance. It's a living boundary between comfort and discomfort, between rest and buzzing interruptions. You stay there a long time, not because you're tired, but because the air simply feels clean, whole, kind. The plants whisper quietly in the wind, and you find yourself drifting not into sleep, not yet, but into a calm that feels like sleep's gentle cousin. And for once, there's not a single itch to scratch. Evening deepens. The soft hush of night wraps Thebes in a velvety calm, and you find yourself back near the city's core, wandering through narrow streets that twist like ribbons left by a god in a hurry. A new scent draws you now, thicker, oilier, more pungent. It's the unmistakable aroma of olive oil warmed over a low flame, spiked with herbs and hints of smoke. You follow it until you stumble upon a modest stall tucked between two houses. The canvas canopy above it is patched with papyrus, and the wooden shelves groan beneath the weight of clay bottles and vials. You've found the oil merchants. Again. But this time, it's different. These aren't high society perfumers. These are street-level vendors. Everyday alchemists catering to both the divine and the very sweaty. A young man greets you, arms shiny with oil and bare to the shoulder. "Welcome to the stink and shine," he jokes. "You want to smell like love, a goddess, or someone who never sees a mosquito?" You grin and step closer. The shelves are chaotic, jars without labels, bowls full of crushed herbs, and vials stuffed with flower petals suspended in golden liquid. The air is a whirlpool of conflicting aromas: rose and garlic, cinnamon and fish oil, myrrh and something that smells like old papyrus left out in the rain. The merchant's younger brother is grinding something in a mortar. "Wormwood," he explains without prompting. "Strong. Rub it on your ankles, and even scorpions go looking for a better neighborhood." You nod appreciatively. Nearby, a third man is pouring oil through a fine sieve lined with cloth soaked in mint. "Double-strained," he says. "Less clouding, more biting power. Against the bugs, not people. Though," he gives you a sideways look, "it depends how much you use. They work fast and with the comfort of ritual. Scoop, strain, pour, stir, cork, wipe. Their fingers are stained brown and green, and they seem immune to the overwhelming fragrance swirling around them. This isn't just their trade, it's their daily weather." You watch as a customer arrives, a weary mother with a baby slung across her back. She purchases a small pot labeled only with a beetle glyph. The merchant tells her, "Smear it on the door frame, the windowsill, and behind his ears. No ants, no fever dreams." She leaves, and you glance at the pot in curiosity. Historians still argue about how scientific these formulations really were. Were they lucky guesses refined over generations? Or was there a deeper understanding of botanical properties lost to time? You suspect both. After all, a few thousand years of trial and error can turn even a guess into doctrine. One merchant hands you a small roll of linen. "Try this," he says. You unwrap it. Inside is a blend of ingredients pressed into a pliable bar: honey, rue, juniper, and something sharp and peppery, possibly asafoetida. "Rub it along door hinges or the folds of your tunic," he explains, "especially if you're sleeping outside or near priests." You do as instructed, feeling the tacky mixture smooth beneath your fingers. It smells assertive, like a stern aunt who carries herbs in her pockets and always knows when you're lying. Suddenly, a man rushes up, panting, waving a sandal. "Rats," he gasps. "Big ones, the god's size." Without missing a beat, one of the brothers tosses him a pouch. "Bay leaves, castor oil, and onion skin," he says. "Soak it in vinegar. Wipe your floors." You blink. "That works?" "Mostly," he shrugs. "If not, it makes your house smell so bad the rats politely leave." You burst out laughing, and the merchant joins you. He picks up a bottle and holds it out. "This one's our best seller," he says. "Smells like cedar, cloves, and justice." You raise your eyebrows. "Justice?" "Well," he leans in, "bugs don't deserve nice things." The entire stall erupts in laughter. The street lamp flickers above, and you realize you've been here for longer than expected. The scent of the oils clings to your clothes, your hair, even your breath. You feel preserved, prepared, practically pickled in plant defense. You thank the merchants, purchase a small vial of their sharpest blend, something they call mosquito regret, and step back into the night. Your path home is lined with lanterns. Each one glows above a doorstep and casts the shadows of hanging herb bundles on the walls. Thebes at night is a different place. Quieter, more intimate, more fragrant. And safer. Thanks to people like these merchants who fight a daily war against tiny winged invaders using nothing but roots, oil, and the knowledge passed through 10,000 mosquito bites. You pass under an archway of hanging basil and smile. It smells like peace. The air grows thicker again as you near the temple quarter, but not with heat. This time, it's the unmistakable density of layered incense and fragrant smoke. You're not in the main temple complex now. Instead, you've stumbled upon a smaller shrine, nestled between homes and alleys, its sandstone worn soft by generations of quiet reverence. You hesitate at the entrance, not from fear, but from the overwhelming smell that meets you at the threshold. It's not unpleasant, just intense. You step inside, and immediately the world hushes. The ceiling is low, the floor uneven, and the walls stained from countless offerings of oil and smoke. And standing near the altar are 3 priests, all barefoot, all wearing the simplest linen tunics, their faces calm, their hands busy. They're scenting the gods, and not just with perfumed oils. They're using everything: powders, incense, salves, pastes, dried petals, crushed resins. Each material is selected, handled, applied with care that borders on choreography. One priest rubs cedar oil along the base of a statue. Another fans smoke from burning tamarisk bark toward the deity's face. The third is whispering something over a bowl of thick, golden liquid while slowly stirring in dried blue lotus. You stand still, unsure if you're allowed to watch, but they acknowledge you with the faintest nod. You're welcome, as long as you don't disrupt the scent. The air in here is more aromatic than breathable, but you begin to adapt. A priest passes close, his skin slick with sweat and oil. He's wearing an amulet around his neck, small, shaped like a nose. You look closer. It's not jewelry, it's functional. Inside the open cavity of the nose are tiny beads of a pungent herb, a personal air filter. You smile. It makes sense. These are the priesthood of the nose. In a world where scent is sacred, they are its gatekeepers, trained not just to recite rituals, but to smell, to identify, to blend and balance. A misstep in perfume could insult a god. Or worse, fail to keep insects out of the sanctuary. You follow as one of them walks toward a side chamber, opening a jar and sniffing it deeply. He grimaces. "Gone sour," he mutters. He pours the spoiled oil into a clay trough designed for disposals, then wipes his hands on his robe and selects a fresh blend, rose and marjoram. Historians still wonder how much olfactory training was involved in temple life. Did young priests memorize scents like scholars memorize texts? Were there ranking systems based on scent mixing skill? Or was it more instinctual, handed down from elder to apprentice through shared rituals and sneezes? The man in front of you offers a dish of oil. "Smell," he says. You do. It's complicated. Bitter at first, then sweet, warm, a little peppery. "Chamomile," he says. "For peace and fleas." He motions for you to dab some on your wrists. You obey. The room's scent shifts. Or maybe you do. You're part of the ritual now. The priest leads you to a shelf lined with small figurines, lesser gods, household spirits, ancestors. Each has a tiny bowl of scented offering before it. Lavender, crushed fig, smoldering myrrh. He lifts a reed stick, dips it in oil, and anoints the figurines one by one, murmuring phrases you can't quite hear. Then he turns to you. "Do you know what the gods hate most?" he asks gently. You blink. "Mosquitoes?" He smiles. "Silence." He gestures to the scents curling through the air. These are their language. No scent, no voice. You nod slowly, feeling a weight settle over the moment. He takes a piece of linen and hands it to you. It's soaked in something warm and cinnamon sweet. "Tie it around your neck," he says, "for walking home. There are spirits tonight, and bugs." You thank him. He bows. You exit the shrine quietly, stepping back into the open air that suddenly feels cold and empty without the thick embrace of perfume. But the scent clings to you, on your skin, in your hair, and now, in the linen at your throat. As you walk, you notice the difference immediately. The air parts around you. Flies hover, hesitate, and retreat. It's not just scent. It's presence. You carry the shrine with you. You continue through Thebes under the quiet gaze of the stars, your perfumed linen still warm against your skin. The alleys wind narrower now, opening suddenly into a wide courtyard lit with the soft flicker of oil lamps. Voices drift on the breeze, gentle, rhythmic, and broken by the occasional giggle. You realize where you are. A birthing house. Not just any home, but a midwife's sanctuary. Part clinic, part temple, and part fortress against the unseen. Illness, misfortune, and of course, biting insects. You're waved inside with the same casual welcome you felt all evening. No one questions your presence. You're simply another body in a place designed for comfort. The space is divided into small chambers separated by hanging linens. Inside, expectant mothers rest on cushions, their bellies round and glowing with applied oil. The air is thick with the scent of lotus, fennel, and something smoky, perhaps burning fenugreek, a known insect repellent and uterine relaxant. One of the midwives approaches, wiping her hands on a cloth. She wears no shoes, and her hair is braided with tiny sprigs of thyme. She smiles at you and gestures toward a clay bowl simmering near a window. "That's for the birth spirit," she says, "and for the flies." You lean in. The mixture inside the bowl bubbles slowly over hot coals. It smells like chamomile tea laced with garlic. Comforting, but assertive. In the next chamber, a woman labors, her moans low and steady. An assistant fans her not with woven reeds, but with broad leaves that have been dipped in aromatic oil. Each wave releases a subtle scent. Lavender, maybe coriander. Not only does it cool the air, it keeps pests at bay during this most delicate moment. You're told the recipe of the oil varies by midwife. Some include citrus peel, others prefer onion or asafoetida. It depends on what spirits or creatures they're trying to repel. A small girl sits nearby with a clay rattle, shaking it at regular intervals. Not just to soothe the laboring mother, but to startle flies, you're told. Rhythm can be protective too. You settle on a bench, watching as herbs are mixed, oils stirred, cloths soaked. This is a dance of care, and scent is its music. Historians still debate how medicalized these birth rituals were. Some say superstition drove most of the choices, but you can't ignore the clear understanding of aromatherapy, how certain oils calm, others invigorate, and still others defend. A midwife hands you a scrap of waxed linen. "Bite on this," she says. You blink. "Not you," she grins. "For the mother. It's been soaked in oil to ease the pain." You nod. She tosses a handful of dried herbs into the simmering pot, basil, dill, and rose petals, and stirs. A young woman nearby scribbles something on a palm fiber scroll. Dosage, duration, perhaps a prayer. You watch the assistant oil the window frame. "Keeps the ants out," she says, "and the heat." The scent is pungent, sharp and astringent, definitely something vinegar-based. You feel a breeze pass through, and again, there's that absence. No flies, no buzzing, just the quiet pressure of the moment, held together by scent. The mother groans once more, louder now. The midwives move quickly but still calmly. A new cloth is laid out, soaked in wine and infused with crushed lotus. The room fills with the unmistakable note of blue lotus. Sweet, earthy, sedative. Not just for her, for everyone. Then, a cry. New life. A wet, wriggling baby held aloft in practiced hands. The midwife hums, low and steady. She doesn't rush. She places the infant on a warm pad soaked in oil, rubs the baby's skin gently with a mixture that smells like almond, myrrh, and fenugreek. Not for vanity, for protection. From dryness. From spirits. From mosquitoes. The cord is cut with a blade wiped in mint oil. The knife is set aside, the cloths changed, and a small censer is lit. Smoke drifts upward, carrying the scent of crushed sage and cinnamon bark. The baby does not cry again. You feel yourself soften. This, you realize, is how the Egyptians approached life. With scent, from the first breath to the last. Perfume wasn't luxury. It was shield. It was lullaby. It was the space between you and the bite. The mother exhales and smiles, eyes closed. A servant presses a vial of rose oil into her palm. "For sleep," she whispers. "For the dreams." You rise, quietly excusing yourself. The courtyard is cooler now, the stars brighter. You inhale the lingering scents. Birth, herbs, relief. And again you notice, not one insect follows you out. The scent of new life still clings gently to your clothes as you wander away from the birthing house, your footsteps soft against the dusty road. But even in this lull, your journey is far from over. You soon find yourself outside a low stone building, its doorway framed with simple etchings and a carved wooden sign swinging lightly in the breeze. You've stumbled upon an apothecary, a real one, part clinic, part experiment station, part community gossip hub. You duck your head and step inside. Immediately, you're hit with an avalanche of smells. Some are comforting, warm ginger, dried chamomile, honeyed dates. Others are more assertive. Vinegar, fish oil, something unmistakably sulfurous. In the center of the room, a woman in her mid-years hunches over a low table, grinding something in a broad ceramic bowl. She doesn't look up. "Close the door before the smells escape," she mutters, then adds without malice, "or the flies will think I'm making lunch." You oblige, pulling the heavy linen curtain shut behind you. Shelves line every wall, groaning under jars and bowls, bundles of herbs, pots of thickened oils, and vials sealed with wax. You watch as she adds a greenish powder to a vial of pale oil and gives it a hard shake. The mixture clouds instantly and starts to fizz. She sighs. "Too much mint," she says. "Good for headaches, but it turns the bugs into philosophers. Won't leave. Just hover and contemplate." You chuckle, and that earns a sideways glance. "Curious?" she asks. You nod. She gestures toward the wall behind her, where several scrolls hang neatly on wooden pegs. Each one is a recipe, some written in delicate script, others scrawled in what can only be described as desperate shorthand. One reads, "Oil of quiet sleep, lotus, balm, lavender, lizard tail. Optional." You point. "Lizard tail?" She shrugs. "Some say it wards off scorpions. Others just like the crunch." Historians still wrestle with how standardized Egyptian medicine truly was. While some medical papyri exist, detailing hundreds of remedies for everything from burns to belly aches, it's likely that much of the day-to-day practice was improvised, based on smell, based on experience, based on whatever worked last time. The apothecary woman hands you a small jar. "Smell this." You do. It's sharp and grassy at first. Then it deepens into something warmer. Maybe basil, maybe marjoram. You feel your sinuses open, your spine straighten. She nods. "That's my anti-itch blend. Good for bites, boils, and bad luck." She takes it back and scoops some into a cloth sachet, tying it with a thread dyed a reddish purple. Possibly beet juice, possibly wine. "For your bed," she says. "If the bugs don't run, the smell will at least make you dream of swimming away." On a nearby shelf, you spot a set of ceramic discs with holes punched in them. "What are those?" "Burner stones," she says. "You rub oil into them, hang them near the bed, and the scent soaks the room overnight. Some people say they keep out mosquitoes. Others say they attract pleasant dreams." She leans in and whispers, "I sell them either way." You're starting to see the pattern now. Medicine, mysticism, mosquito control, woven into one fragrant philosophy. She moves to a small clay oven and opens the lid on a bubbling pot. "This one's for market stalls," she explains. "Thick oil base, bit of vinegar, coriander seed, and crushed garlic. Keeps the flies off the figs." She hands you a flat, circular stone dabbed with the stuff. It's pungent, very pungent, but oddly not unpleasant. It smells like a clean kitchen. With attitude, a boy bursts in through the curtain, carrying a sack of herbs and a massive grin. "I found the rue," he announces. She takes the bundle and sniffs it. "Good," she says. "Bring it to the back, and wash your feet before touching the scorpion oil again." You stifle a laugh. She packs a small box for you, 3 sachets of dried herbs, a tiny corked vial of her bite balm, and one scented cloth, folded carefully and tied with twine. She hands it over with a smirk. Your dreams will smell like someone else's grandmother. That's how you'll know it's working. You thank her and step back out into the evening, the air feeling crisper now, scented with the faint herbal halo that follows you like an invisible shawl. And once again, as you walk, no bugs. Just the gentle scent of peppermint, rue, and possibly lizard tail, swirling behind you like protection on the wind. Night has settled over Thebes in full now, draping the city in soft shadow and gentle hush. You drift from the scent-heavy apothecary, your bundle of strange-smelling treasures tucked beneath your arm, and follow the laughter of music and voices through a side street lined with hanging lanterns and open doorways. There's a gathering happening, a noble's feast, from the look of the decorative torches and linen banners rippling slightly in the breeze. But this isn't the same elegant affair you witnessed earlier. This one is louder, looser, earthier. You're invited in with a wave, and curiosity carries you forward. You're ushered to a low cushion beside a wide wooden table, already crowded with bowls of dates, roasted meats, lentils, and something red and sticky that might be honeyed pomegranate. The smells are intoxicating. But as you settle in and inhale more deeply, you realize the aroma of the food is only part of the experience. Everything here is layered in scent. Even the food is fighting the bugs. A woman beside you lifts a small bunch of herbs, maybe dill, maybe hyssop, and waves it slowly over her plate. "They land less if you confuse them," she says with a grin, brushing her shoulder dramatically with the green fronds. "And you smell like lunch's big sister." She's not wrong. You notice a bottle near your elbow, clay, sealed with a waxed cork. You pop it open and sniff. The scent is sharp, lemony, and herbal. You dip your fingers in and touch the oil to your temples and wrists, as others around you do the same. "You'll want that," says a man across the table. "The roast is good, but the beetles think so too." As if summoned, a small beetle scuttles near the edge of the platter. A servant calmly drops a pinch of rosemary into a small burner beside the table, sending up a fragrant puff of smoke. The beetle retreats. The scent wins. Historians still debate whether food spices in ancient Egypt were used more for flavor or function. But here you're seeing both. The lentils are laced with garlic, not subtle. The pomegranate is stewed with cloves. Even the bread seems brushed with a sprig of something pungent before being served. And it works. The meal is rich, fragrant, and almost entirely unbothered by buzzing intruders. A young girl carries a tray of small cups filled with a golden liquid. You take one. It's spiced wine, warmed and infused with herbs. You taste honey, pepper, maybe a touch of ginger. The drink is strong, but not overwhelming. A slow, comfortable burn. An internal repellent, the host jokes, raising his cup. If it doesn't keep the bugs away, at least you'll care less. There's laughter all around, and you notice something subtle. Every few minutes, a servant walks past, fanning guests with wide, curved fans that seem to leave behind a trace of cinnamon or citrus. Not every fan wave is scented, but enough to build a rhythm. You sit still and let one pass over your face. The air it brings is sweet and sharp, clearing your nose and lifting your spirits. A dog weaves between the tables, its fur glinting with a slick layer of something perfumed, probably oiled earlier in the evening. It yawns as it passes, and you could swear you catch a hint of lavender on its breath. You lean back, taking in the room. There's no ceremony here, no divine rituals, just humans being clever. They're blending pleasure and practicality, taste and technique, scent and survival. You wonder what modern kitchens might look like if they adopted this idea fully. Garlic to taste and repel. Cinnamon to flavor and discourage mid-meal buzzing. A man to your right unwraps a leaf bundle and reveals a paste the color of desert mud. "Date vinegar, crushed onion, and basil," he says proudly. Goes under the table, keeps the crawling guests outside. You nod solemnly. He passes you a bowl of dried fruit. Each piece is glossy and sticky, rolled in crushed herbs. You chew one slowly. Sweet fig. Then, an aftertaste of thyme? Unexpected. Clever. You sit in the warmth of torchlight and good company for a long while. Scent and spice swirl in the air. At some point, someone begins playing a stringed instrument, and the music lulls the conversation into a pleasant hum. You close your eyes. You can feel it. The buzz of energy without the buzz of bugs. You are full, scented, satisfied. And when the breeze rolls in from the courtyard and brings with it nothing but the smell of cedar smoke and laughter, you realize this, too, is protection. Not just against insects, but against a harsh world. This is how people hold the dark at bay. One bite of clove-roasted onion at a time. You emerge from the warmth of the feast into the cooler hush of night again, belly full and skin lightly oiled with whatever that was in the communal bowl by the breadbasket. Thebes now breathes slowly. Homes closing their shutters, distant dogs giving their final rounds of commentary, and the occasional torch flickering on temple walls. You pass into a quieter part of the palace complex, a servant's wing, perhaps, or an annex. Here, the noise has settled, but not the routine. And what you stumble upon next is far from glamorous, but surprisingly fragrant. Royal Laundry Day. Yes, even Pharaoh's linens must be washed. But in Egypt, laundry wasn't just a matter of soap and scrubbing. It was ritual. It was scent work. It was, let's be honest, bug warfare. You approach the stone steps that lead to a flat courtyard, where basins line the perimeter and lengths of linen flutter like ghostly banners on taut ropes. A group of women and men scrub and rinse under the pale glow of lamp fire, their hands wrinkled but fast, their motions practiced. A few hum as they work. One woman belts a tune that appears to be about fleas losing their grip on silk. You are not shooed away. Instead, you're offered a place near a basin. The laundress beside you dips a folded sheet into a mixture that smells nothing like modern detergent, and everything like mint, lemon peel, and crushed marjoram. She grins. This one sleeps in the queen's chamber. You think she wants bug bites on her calves? You nod solemnly. Another washer wrings out a tunic, long, wide-sleeved, likely priestly. She drapes it over a line and sprinkles a fine powder on top. Thyme and vinegar dust, she explains. Keeps the midges off while it dries, and smells better than the priests do. That earns a round of laughter. One man is stirring a massive basin of hot water over a fire, into which he pours not soap, but an infusion made from camphor, rose petals, and eucalyptus. The scent rises like a cloud, soothing, spicy, clean. It curls into your nose and lodges there with authority. Historians still dig through fragmentary texts for mentions of Egyptian laundering practices, but what's rarely recorded is what you're seeing now. How closely tied scent and cleanliness were, not just for appearances, but as a means of pest control. In a land of relentless heat, standing water, and plentiful insects, a perfumed tunic was more than elegance. It was a deterrent, a statement, a barrier. A young boy carries a pile of towels to a second line. You notice that they've been brushed with something shiny. Oil? The woman nods. Cedarwood. Keeps lice out of the folds. You begin to notice a system. Linens for the royals are soaked longer, infused with the most expensive scents. Lavender, lotus, even powdered frankincense for the pharaoh's ceremonial sashes. Servant uniforms, on the other hand, are brushed with bitter herbs like rue and artemisia. Stronger smells, maybe less sweet, but incredibly effective. Even the wash water is sorted. Some basins are for rinsing only, others are mixed with pounded herbs wrapped in linen sachets like oversized tea bags. One woman adds grated orange peel and stirs it slowly, releasing a fresh tang that overpowers even the night air. And everything smells better than any laundry you've ever done. You sit on a low bench and inhale. Nearby, someone fans a pile of drying linens to keep them from attracting bugs during the process. The fan itself is dipped in oil, again with the lemongrass and clove. The repetition of these ingredients begins to feel like a liturgy, a recipe for peace. One older laundress pulls a long, narrow cloth from the basin and holds it up to the moonlight. Funeral linen, she murmurs. still gets oiled, even if it's the last outfit. You raise your eyebrows. She nods. The dead don't like itching either. You stay for a while, helping fold a few sheets, shaking out a tunic here and there. Your reward? A small square of perfumed linen pressed into your palm. A laundry talisman, she calls it. Place it under your pillow, she says. It'll smell like clean dreams. You pocket the square and rise. The night is deeper now, quieter still, and yet you walk through it surrounded by the comforting scent of well-oiled fabrics, steam, and mint. You think of all the linen flapping on the lines, each piece not only made soft by labor, but made safe by scent. And once again, as you pass under an arch heavy with jasmine vines, you marvel at the brilliant simplicity of it all. They didn't just wash for cleanliness, they washed for survival. The quiet of night deepens, and yet somehow, the city feels more alive in its silence. You walk now along a more secluded palace corridor, lit by wall sconces that give off a faint, flickering glow. Shadows sway lazily across the sandstone, and somewhere nearby, water trickles. A fountain, or maybe a tiled basin meant for ritual washing. But you hear something else. Whispers, low voices, footsteps too quick for routine. And then, the unmistakable clink of a stopper being pulled from a glass vial. You freeze at the edge of a wide chamber. It smells incredible. Not just pleasant. Powerful. Almost overwhelming. A blend so rich and layered it makes your eyes water. Rose, cinnamon, myrrh, and something citrusy, perhaps bergamot, though you doubt they called it that. This isn't a religious ritual, and it doesn't smell like the laundry. This is perfume as weapon. At the center of the room, two women are leaning over a table, speaking in hushed tones. Between them sits an ornate box, wood inlaid with ivory and lapis lazuli. Its compartments are filled with tiny bottles, stoppered flasks, and wax-sealed vials. They're blending something, carefully, deliberately, and not for sleep or temple. This is court intrigue. You step closer, quietly now, staying to the shadows. A third woman enters, her bracelets clinking softly. She carries with her a bundle of herbs wrapped in linen. She adds it to the mixture with a grim expression. You listen. The oil being prepared is for a noblewoman, they say. She asks for something memorable. The subtext is thick in the air. You gather that this oil is designed not just to draw attention, but to cause a reaction. One of the women leans over the open vial and winces. Too sharp, she murmurs. She'll faint before he does. A drop of chamomile is added, then honey, then something bitter from a crushed seed. You're watching a different kind of alchemy now, one where perfume is designed to unsettle. Not for gods, not for mosquitoes, for humans, for influence. Historians still puzzle over the role of perfumers in court politics. Some were simply artisans. Others may have been spies, healers, even saboteurs. Scents could sway favor, ignite memory, or poison softly through the nose. You imagine it, a dinner party where one guest begins to feel lightheaded, distracted, oddly emotional, and never suspects the source was a blend of rosewood and sorrow root dabbed behind the hostess's ear. The vial is sealed and tucked into a cloth pouch. The women leave swiftly, their sandals whispering on the stone floor. Only the scent lingers, coiling through the room like invisible tension. You step forward, slowly now, and take in the space. The blending table is covered in tools. Bronze mortars, reed stirrers, strips of linen saturated with test mixtures. It looks like both a scientist's lab and an artist's studio. And the smells, so many of them, layered in the air like ghosts of intentions. You catch notes of black cumin, dried orange rind, crushed mint, and even frankincense boiled to stickiness. Some blends would attract, others repel. Some soothe. Some seduce, some confuse. You find one open jar and lean in. It smells like grief, somehow sweet, earthy, and cold all at once. You step back instinctively, unsure whether your chest feels tight because of the blend or because the scent has unlocked something you weren't expecting. Another jar smells like spring, lemon blossom and something so green it's almost wet. You smile. But the most curious item is a small folded parchment tucked into the corner. A recipe. Written carefully, in ink faded by time but still legible. It reads, blend for tongue loosening, peppermint oil, pomegranate rind, myrrh, and the root of idle talk. You're not sure what that last ingredient is, but you suspect it doesn't grow in the usual gardens. You begin to wonder, how many conversations in the palace were influenced not by reason, but by fragrance? How many rivalries won with a well-placed scent? How many confessions whispered under the influence of a soothing balm laced with persuasion? In a world where perfume is armor, language, and lure, intentions are always floating just above the skin. You leave the room quietly, your mind buzzing with invisible words and unseen strategies. The scent still clings to your clothes, but it doesn't feel comforting, not like the linen from the laundresses or the mint in the apothecary. No, this perfume feels charged, like a message not meant for you. Still, you carry it. It weaves into your journey now, another layer of Thebes, another truth beneath the sweetness. Even among the gods and oils and insects, people remain people. And sometimes, they just want to smell dangerous. You step back into the night with that charged scent still clinging to your skin like a whisper. The palace behind you recedes into silence once more, and ahead, the city stretches, sleepy, breathing, fragrant. But now you turn southward, toward Nubia. Not literally, you're not about to embark on a 10-day caravan, but metaphorically, yes. Because as you meander into a quieter district where the Nile's influence is strong and the accents of the people shift slightly, you begin to notice something different in the air. The smells have changed. Gone is the dominance of lotus and frankincense. Here, the perfume is richer, smokier. The herbs are unfamiliar. And suddenly the lesson is clear. Not all of Egypt's perfumed wisdom is born in Egypt. You're in the Nubian quarter. The houses here are built with the same mud brick, but adorned with painted doors and reed awnings. Children play in alleyways, trailing behind them the scent of smoke and sweet herbs. A woman sits cross-legged at the entrance of her home, grinding seeds with a flat stone. She looks up, smiles without surprise, and pats the empty mat beside her. You sit. She says nothing for a while, just keeps grinding, letting the scent rise. You recognize tamarind, maybe a touch of hibiscus. But then, something else. A deep, musky root. Earthy, dry. She scoops the mixture into a clay dish and gestures toward your arm. You offer it. She smears a line down your forearm and rubs it in gently. For the waterflies, she murmurs. The small ones, that bite between the toes and knees. You glance down, surprised. She smiles. Yes, those. In Nubia, you learn, perfumery isn't always sweet. It's medicinal, protective. Some of it even smells a little like burned sugar mixed with mud. And yet, these blends work. You feel the cooling tingle almost instantly. The woman adds, almost as an afterthought, also works on angry husbands. You grin. She chuckles and gestures behind her, where bundles of herbs hang upside down from a woven beam. Some, basil, marjoram, basil. Others are completely unfamiliar. There's a blue-stemmed stalk with tiny silver leaves that smells like lemon and tobacco. There's a pouch filled with dried beetles, mixed with crushed seeds. For spirits, she says. Not to attract them, to keep them busy, distracted. You learn that Nubian perfume practices aren't just about keeping bugs away. They're layered with stories. A woman might wear an oil blend to mark a new beginning, or to mark the end of something that no longer serves her. A widow might wear crushed wood and dried plum. A new bride might wear oil infused with goat milk, honey, and bruised petals from a flower that only blooms near the water's edge. And yes, there are bug-repellent purposes too. One young man joins you with a small brass bowl filled with burning resin. It's darker than frankincense, thicker, and it smells like the forest's memory. Nubian gum, he says proudly. Trade from the south. Keeps the biting flies out of your hair. He fans it gently toward you, and the smoke curls upward, clinging to your clothes with an almost buttery texture. You feel cleaner, oddly. The itch on your ankle vanishes. Historians still debate the extent of Nubia's influence on Egyptian perfumery. Some dismiss it as marginal. Others insist the best oils always came from the south. What's clear here is that the Nubian knows. You're handed a tiny jar filled with something thick and dark red. "For the night," says the woman. "Dab it under the eyes. The bugs won't bite near the dreams." You thank her, press the jar to your heart, and stand. The children wave as you pass, and the air remains rich, smoky, herbal, comforting in its unfamiliarity. You realize you've been walking through Egypt's perfume history as though it belonged to a single people, a single place. But perfume travels. It soaks into trade routes and language, into skin and prayer. And here, in the Nubian quarter, you see the fusion of scent and survival in its boldest form. You turn one last time to see the woman still grinding herbs under the moonlight, content, unbothered by bugs or anything else. And you wonder, if the gods had noses, would they turn south for inspiration? You're on the move again, but this time the pace quickens. The scents have grown sharper, spicier. You've entered a part of the city that pulses with trade, bartering voices, squeaking carts, and the shuffling of goods through narrow alleys. The Nile is closer here, and with it, the tang of damp air and the distant murmur of dock workers shouting over boatloads of clay amphorae and tightly woven reed baskets. You're in the spice market, and while you're surrounded by sacks of lentils, dried fish, and the occasional clucking chicken, you're here for something far more fragrant: the goods of the myrrh trade. Rows of merchant stalls boast crates overflowing with unfamiliar treasure: twisted roots, glossy resins, crumbled bark, all in shades of gold, amber, and charcoal. You step closer to one stall where a trader carefully pours small pebbles of deep orange resin into a shallow bowl for display. "Commiphora," he says. "Myrrh. From Punt." You nod knowingly now. Punt again. The mysterious land of plenty. Historians still argue its exact location, but for you, it's a smell. Rich, bittersweet, like old books wrapped in honey. He offers a pinch of it, placing a flake into your palm. You rub it between your fingers. It leaves a sticky film and a scent that rises slowly, then blooms. "Burn it, wear it, chew it," the trader says. "Heals wounds, sweetens breath, keeps the flies off your ankles, also makes the priests less grumpy." You pocket the sample with a grin. Another merchant nearby hawks bundles of dried herbs: hyssop, coriander, anise, and roots coiled like tiny snakes. His apprentice is stirring a cauldron of thick, bubbling oil over a flame, the pot spitting like it's mid-argument. He ladles out a small sample onto a piece of bark and hands it to a customer. "For traveling by water," he says. "The bugs follow the boats, but not the smell." You edge closer to hear more. He explains the marsh blend, made for those journeying south, particularly toward Aswan, where the waters teem with insects that bite and hum and make night miserable. The blend includes nut oil, crushed mustard seed, and something they call stone flower, a pungent lichen scraped from river rocks. You smell it. It's assertive. The merchant winks. You won't get many compliments, but you'll also keep your blood. Further down the row, another man sells dried sachets filled with myrrh, mint, and split date seed. He tucks them into necklines, folds of robes, and the hems of sandals. "For traders and long prayers," he says. Keeps the mind clear, the insects uninterested. You ask how far these goods travel. He gestures south, east, across the sea. "People pay more for smell than for gold," he shrugs, "because smell stays." And then he shows you the secret. From beneath his stall, he lifts a small chest filled with dark, knotted bundles. "This," he says, lowering his voice, "is priest-grade myrrh, twice blessed, aged in cedar." You lean in. He opens it. The scent hits you like a warm hand pressing gently over your mouth. Deep, resinous, musky, and haunting. It smells like memories you didn't know you had. It smells like night, like sleep, like every temple you've walked through in your dreams. You nod silently. He nods back. You leave the stall carrying a small sachet and the knowledge that perfume, true perfume, is movement. These scents aren't just blended, they travel. They arrive on boats, tied into satchels, folded into robes, and they carry with them the memory of jungles, deserts, markets, gods. Even the bugs seem to respect the journey. As you pass a loadings area near the water, you see porters rubbing their arms with oil scooped from a communal bowl. Someone's tossed dried basil onto the cargo piles. A baby tied to a mother's back has a tiny flower tucked behind his ear, a shield no bigger than a thumbprint. You pause near the water's edge and watch a skiff glide by, the sailor flicking scented water from a reed ladle around the boat's rim. A makeshift bug border. You inhale, and the breeze brings you 1,000 miles. You're no longer just in Thebes, you're in Punt, you're in Nubia. You're everywhere perfume has traveled, chasing both trade and peace, always ahead of the bite. And beneath it all, always, the low hum of a question. What does protection smell like? Tonight, you know. The scent of the myrrh trade still clings to your tunic as you wander away from the river's edge, meandering through the maze of lamplit alleys and half-closed shutters. But even as the markets quiet down, you catch the rhythmic scratching of a reed pen. You follow it. Down a narrow passageway, tucked behind a perfumer's shop and halfway beneath a sloped mud brick overhang, you find a small, windowless room lit by a single oil lamp. The scent is unmistakable. Hot ink, dried papyrus, and, oddly, jasmine oil. A scribe is at work. You step lightly across the threshold, the floor smooth from years of sandals brushing the dust. The scribe doesn't look up at first, completely absorbed in the steady flow of hieroglyphs he draws across a roll of papyrus, pausing only to dip his stylus into a small ceramic inkwell. And that's where it hits you. The ink smells like perfume. He dips again, and the room fills with the scent. Delicate, heady, clean. Not the acrid tang of modern ink. This is floral, medicinal, and insect repellent? He finally looks up, eyes rimmed with kohl, mouth curled in a half-smile. Most people notice the writing, he says. You notice the smell. You nod. He sets his stylus down and beckons you closer. The ink, he explains, lifting the jar, is lotus-based. The oil keeps the flies from landing on the page while I work. And on me, too. You peer inside. The ink is dark, with a slight shimmer. Probably charcoal mixed with gum and scented oil. A practical blend, and an aromatic shield. He offers you a strip of papyrus to smell directly. You lean in. Sweet lotus, burnt wood. Something green, almost citrusy. Unexpected, for ink. But in a place like this, where heat and stillness invite buzzing companions, it makes perfect sense. Historians often skip over the small details. The ink that smells, the parchment that doesn't curl from humidity because it's been rubbed with herbal oil. But this man, this scribe, lives by those details. Some inks I use to keep my thoughts sharp, he says, pulling out another pot. This one has mint and fennel, clears the sinuses, keeps me awake, and he uncorks it and you flinch at the strength. It smells like a medicinal punch in the nostrils, energizing and completely unpleasant for a mosquito. He gestures at a bundle of old scrolls nearby, tied with scented reeds. If the bugs ruin a scroll, the whole story's gone. So we rub the edges with clove oil, bitter, but they stay away. You ask him if the scent ever interferes with the writing. He chuckles. Only when the ink smells better than the ideas. On the wall, there's a hanging cloth, fringed and dyed with saffron, and tucked inside it, a flat stone etched with glyphs. He explains it's a protective charm, soaked in citronella and smoke-cured over acacia coals. The charm doesn't just protect the words, it guards the scribe's sleep, too. There are nights, he says, when I write until the moon vanishes. I can't fight the flies and write at the same time. So I scent the room. He lights a small cone of incense. The smoke drifts lazily, curling above his head and looping around his writing hand. The scent is subtle. Cedar, camphor, and something almost minty. Perhaps pennyroyal. The insects hesitate at the window but never come inside. You settle beside him as he resumes his work, dipping the stylus and gliding it across the papyrus with steady grace. The scratching is rhythmic, soothing, a lullaby written in ink and scent. You notice a phrase on the page. The pen is the tongue of the god Thoth, and its scent is its prayer. You ask if he wrote that. He smiles. Copied it from a temple text. But I believe it. A moth flutters toward the lamp, then darts away again, seemingly confused by the smoke. The scribe doesn't notice. He's in the zone now, the scent shielding him, the silence deepening. And you? You sit with the knowledge that even in the quiet act of writing, the Egyptians found room for perfume, not just for elegance, but for purpose. To protect the page, to protect the scribe, to preserve thought in an age before backup scrolls. You inhale again, ink and lotus, warm parchment, sacred intent. And you realize, even the stories were scented. You leave the scribe's chamber with your thoughts steeped in ink and lotus, and you return to the streets in near silence. The city is mostly asleep now. The lanterns flicker lower, the alleyways are hushed, and only the softest footsteps break the stillness. Yours. But one final scent draws you in. Smoke. Thick. Resinous. Spiced. It drifts from a stone doorway adorned with painted symbols and bronze scarabs affixed above the lintel. The smell is both soothing and intense. You know it immediately. Temple incense. But this temple is different. This isn't a place for the living. You've stepped into the antechamber of a mortuary complex. No mourners, no chants, just the hum of preservation and the perfume of eternity. Inside, priests move like shadows, draped in linen, hands gloved in oil and resin. You're not in the embalming room itself, but close enough to sense the rituals unfolding. The smell of death is here, yes, but it's buried beneath layer after layer of aromatic defense. You inhale myrrh, cedar, juniper berries, cinnamon bark, and beneath that, something sharper. Bitumen, perhaps. The scent is not pleasant, but it is powerful. A low-burning censer glows in the corner, releasing a slow stream of smoke. A priest passes by carrying a small jar. He pauses when he sees you, gestures to your feet, then your chest. You place your hand over your heart, bow slightly. He accepts your presence. He opens the jar. Inside is a thick, amber-colored paste. He smears a finger along its rim and presses it gently to the threshold. For passage, he says softly. And peace. You follow him a few steps deeper, where shelves are stacked with small containers, oils and balms used not for the living, but for the dead. Perfumes intended to preserve, to protect, to guide. One container is labeled with a glyph you recognize, keset, an old word for fragrance, but also breath. The scent, he explains, helps the soul recognize the body again in the afterlife. Historians still debate whether such perfuming practices were spiritual, hygienic, or symbolic. But here, you understand it instinctively. The smell is memory, its identity, its reassurance. You breathe in, and you are someone. At the center of the room lies a figure, wrapped in linen, resting beneath a canopy. A priest brushes oil onto the outer wrappings. Not just decoration. This is defense. Not against rot, but against what might crawl, bite, or burrow. The oil smells of pine and honey, with a bitter base note, possibly crushed wormwood. Around the body are small scent cones, just like the ones worn by dancers and nobles. These will melt slowly, even in death, offering a final perfume to guide the soul. You notice a cone placed not at the head, but at the feet. To keep the ants from walking into heaven, a voice murmurs behind you. You glance over your shoulder and see another priest. Older, eyes amused. You smile at the joke, but you don't doubt the sincerity. A wall painting nearby shows the weighing of the heart. Anubis leans in, nose nearly touching the scale. Above him, a swirl of painted lines, scent trails perhaps, curl upward toward a seated Osiris. Even gods, it seems, appreciate a well-scented offering. The priest leads you into a smaller chamber. Inside are shelves of canopic jars, resting in stillness. Each one bears the head of a protective god, and each is ringed with a faint halo of scent. Oil rubbed around the base, dried herbs tucked beneath, tiny bundles tied with linen soaked in myrrh and rosewater. You ask if all this scent is for the soul or the body. The priest doesn't answer directly. He simply picks up a cloth and places it over your shoulder. It's warm, infused with cedar and cassia. Both, he says. And then, almost like a whisper, we do not wish the dead to wake up itching. You laugh, softly, reverently, but it stays with you. You exit the temple slowly. The perfume of preservation wrapped around you like a final blessing. The wind has picked up slightly now, brushing through palm leaves and sending curls of incense smoke out over the rooftops. Thebes, even in sleep, smells alive. You pause in the street. The air carries layers of scent. Last-minute cooking fires, herbs hanging in windows, oil still seeping from a priest's hand. And behind it all, one final fragrance. Ancient, bittersweet, eternal. The smell of memory. The night is nearly complete now. Its silence deeper, its shadows longer, and even the insects seem to have given up. But not you. One more trail of scent draws you on, like a final note in a lullaby still waiting to resolve. And this time, it isn't coming from a private home, a temple, or even a shop. It's wafting from a courtyard pulsing with music, laughter, and candlelight. You've arrived at a festival. It isn't the grand, state-sponsored kind with rigid rituals and long speeches. No, this is something warmer, livelier, more human. An annual celebration honoring a lesser-known household god, one associated with joy, fertility, and yes, scent. You're welcomed in without hesitation. The courtyard is strung with garlands of flowers and bundles of herbs. There are no walls, just a woven perimeter of reeds and incense burners placed at every corner. Guests wear their finest linen, adorned not in jewelry, but in oils. You step inside and are nearly knocked back by the power of it. Waves of perfume rise and swirl, sweet and peppery, floral and smoky. Someone hands you a cup of spiced beer, and another ties a wreath of marigolds loosely around your shoulders. You're pulled into the rhythm of it all, feet bare against the warm ground, arms brushed occasionally with rose-scented sleeves. You sit beside a group of women gathered around a brazier. They're grinding dried petals and resins in a bowl, then tossing pinches of the mixture into the fire. With each puff of smoke, they lean in and inhale deeply, then laugh and lean back, eyes fluttering shut. You follow suit. The scent, light at first, expands in your chest like a story unfolding. Cinnamon, mint, frankincense, and a trace of orange peel. Someone explains, it's a dream blend, brings good sleep, keeps the night clean. Not just from insects, from spirits, from sorrow. Nearby, children dip strips of linen into perfumed water and wave them around like flags, chasing each other with giggles and shouts. Bug races, says a man beside you. Whoever repels the most wins. It's half game, half protection. Everything here is dual purpose. Everything here is joyful. In the center of the courtyard, an altar glows with small bowls of scented oil. Guests approach one by one, dipping their fingers in and pressing the oil to their temples, their hearts, their ankles. You watch as one woman anoints the top of her feet, then tosses a final sprig of thyme into the flames. You ask what the god's name is. The man beside you grins. We don't say it aloud tonight, he says. He smells it. If he's pleased, he keeps the flies from the bed and the bad dreams from the door. You raise your eyebrows. And if he's not? You ask. The man chuckles. You'll know by the itching. As music rises, soft flutes and clay drums, you notice another curious detail. Every guest, young or old, wears a small cone of scented wax at their crown. Not the melting cones of nobility, but hand-molded versions shaped like stars, flowers, even tiny birds. They're already beginning to soften, glistening under the torchlight. Someone taps your shoulder and offers you one. Yours is shaped like a crescent moon. It smells like cardamom and myrrh. Historians rarely mention these festivals in their scrolls, but the wall paintings remember. So do the recipes passed from mother to daughter, carved into pots, whispered across generations. Recipes for sleep, for safety, for celebration. The flames crackle. The air grows heavier. The music slows. As the night deepens, everyone moves toward the center of the courtyard. There, a final mixture is prepared. Oils of lotus, lemongrass, and crushed peppermint, poured into a wide bowl. Guests dip small pieces of cloth into the mixture and press them gently to their foreheads. A last offering to the god of scent and rest. You do the same. The cloth is cool, damp, fragrant. As you tie it around your head, a breeze stirs the courtyard and sends the final swirl of incense curling upward. The crowd begins to disperse, one by one, soft goodnights and laughter echoing into the darkness. The children run slower now. The drums fall silent. The god has been honored. You sit a moment longer. The scent of the cloth, the fire, the wax cone, everything blends into one final perfume. It's thick, it's sweet, and it feels like safety. Not luxury, not indulgence, just safety. You rise. And for the first time tonight, it truly feels like bedtime. The hush of Thebes at its sleepiest now wraps around you like a second skin. The laughter from the festival has faded, leaving behind only the soft rustle of linen curtains in the wind and the faint hum of crickets calling from reeds along the canals. You move through the city like a ghost, or maybe just a very drowsy traveler. Either way, you're drawn now toward a less perfumed but equally fascinating scent. Earth. Dry, loamy, sun-baked earth that cools at night and exhales all its secrets once the sun has gone. You're approaching one of the city's lesser-known gardens, not a royal orchard or temple grove. This is a perfumer's test garden, tucked behind a modest stone home near the city edge. You step through a low archway woven with climbing vines, and immediately you're enveloped in a tangle of aromas, crushed herbs underfoot, woody shrubs brushing your arms, flowers that bloom only by moonlight. A man with an oiled beard and hands stained dark with sap greets you with a sleepy nod. He gestures for you to join him among the rows of plants. No words needed. This is sacred, scented ground. He leads you past patchouli growing in clay pots, basil thick and wild, and stalks of sweet grass that tickle your ankles as you pass. You pause to inhale near a bush of night-blooming jasmine, its tiny white petals glowing faintly under the moon. The scent is intoxicating, soft, powdery, and slightly melancholic, like remembering something lovely you thought you'd forgotten. This one, the gardener says, finally speaking, is for heartbreak. Helps people sleep after endings. You nod, deeply understanding, even if you don't know why. He shows you more. A small patch of blue lotus, floating in a shallow pond. Not many left. Fragile, precious, prone to pouting if the water is too warm. It's a moody flower, he says. Perfect for perfume. You must coax it. You crouch near the pond and let the smell reach you slowly. It's faint, aquatic, slightly resinous. It doesn't dazzle. It invites. Like a whisper that asks you to stay a while. He brings you to a raised bed of marjoram and thyme, grown not for cooking but for pressing. The oils they yield are the base notes in many Egyptian blends, the scaffolding, he explains, that holds the brighter scents together. Without the base, he shrugs, the top notes fly away. Historians write about gardens, sure, but they usually focus on royal ones, tall sycamores and imported palms. Rarely do they mention the tiny, stubborn gardens where real perfume begins, where bugs buzz, dirt clings to sandals, and the scent of the earth competes with the perfume itself. The gardener invites you into a small shed at the garden's edge. Inside, it smells amazing. Not of flowers or spices, but of pressed oil, sun-dried wood, and thyme. Dozens of small bowls line the shelf. Some hold waxy solids, others thick amber liquids. He explains, each batch must rest. Like bread dough, if you rush it, it fights back. You pick up a jar labeled in crude glyphs, Mystery Blend. He laughs. Every garden has one, a mix of mistakes and leftovers. Sometimes it's terrible. Sometimes it's genius. He offers you a dab on your wrist. You sniff. It's unexpected. A little citrus, a little smoke, a faint floral bite. Not elegant, but alive. Like something with an opinion. You never know, he says, smiling. You glance at the shelf behind him and notice a reed scroll hanging from a peg. It lists combinations: sweet plus sharp, cool plus bitter, oil of stone fruit plus dust of bark. It's not science. It's a conversation. Everything in this garden is in conversation. With the insects, with the sun, with sleep. The gardener walks you to the edge of the path and presses a sachet of dried mint and lavender into your palm. Place it under your tongue if you wake too soon, he says. You thank him and turn to leave, the garden already folding itself back into night behind you. As you walk, the earth beneath your feet exhales again. You realize the garden wasn't just a place of scent. It was a lullaby, written in leaves and oil, and you're already halfway asleep. The sachet of mint and lavender tucked in your palm feels warm now, like it's absorbed some of the garden's calm. You hold it gently as you walk, fingers curled around it like a charm against the growing weight in your limbs. The city is hushed. No lamps flicker, no sandals shuffle. Not even the wind dares to stir the thin trees lining the temple walls. But you follow one final thread of scent, faint and familiar. Beeswax. It leads you into a tiny workshop nestled between two shuttered bakeries. Its door is open just wide enough to invite curiosity, but not so much as to expect company. You step inside, and the air greets you like a warm quilt. This is where perfume ends, or perhaps where it begins again. It's a cone workshop, not royal ones, not decorative. These are the cones worn by real people. Merchants, midwives, dancers, priests. Small sculpted blobs of wax, oil, and powdered flowers. You see trays of them cooling in the corner, each shaped just a bit differently. Some round, others flattened like petals. One resembles a little coiled snake. You breathe in. The smell is layered, soft, and creamy. Beeswax, sure, but also crushed hibiscus, a hint of anise, and something woodsy. The scent isn't strong. It's not meant to be. These cones melt slowly, releasing aroma over hours, allowing it to mix with skin, hair, air, sleep. A young boy tends the molds, his fingers stained gold from saffron. He doesn't speak, just nods at you, then returns to his task, pouring a molten blend from a tiny bronze pot into carved stone molds. His movements are careful, reverent. You kneel beside a basket of finished cones and lift one to your nose. It smells like peace, and maybe a little like almonds. Each cone has a purpose, one for festivals, one for grief, one for sleep. This one, pressed with poppy seed and fig leaf, is meant for dreams. Do they really work? You whisper. An old woman appears from behind a curtain as if summoned by your question. Her eyes twinkle. Of course not, she says, unless you want them to. She beckons you to follow her into a smaller room, where shelves line the walls and pots of ingredients simmer over low flames. The scents compete, softly. Rose, tamarind, cedar ash. But they don't fight. They converse. She shows you the cone she wears. Oval, pressed with thyme flowers. For memory, she says, touching her temple. It reminds me of my mother's garden. She tells you the wax must be perfect, too soft and it melts too fast, too hard and it refuses to release its scent. The oil must be aged, the herbs dried in shade, never sun. The cone doesn't just perfume you, she says, it prepares you. For sleep, for love, for anything. She hands you one shaped like a tear. For traveling dreams, she says. Burn it, or wear it, or just hold it if you're too tired. You accept it, and she places a small square of linen in your palm. Wrap it. Scent clings longer if you wrap it in memory. Historians have written only footnotes about these cones, calling them novelty, decoration, or status symbols. But here, in this room, scented with quiet conviction, you know better. These are not luxuries, they are lullabies. You leave the workshop with the cone cradled in your palm and the linen tied gently around it. The beeswax is already softening from the warmth of your hand, and the scent trails behind you like the echo of a temple chant. The moon is low now. The streets shimmer in pale blue. And in your pocket, that sachet of mint and lavender still waits. You smile. You're almost ready for sleep. The city of Thebes lies behind you now. Its scented courtyards, perfumed alleys, and oil-lit temples slowly swallowed by the hush of pre-dawn stillness. Your steps are slow, unhurried, and the ground feels familiar beneath your feet, as if it's been waiting all night to carry you home. You follow the edge of a canal, the water whispering gently as it passes. Somewhere in the reeds a frog croaks once, then falls silent. You pause, the sachet of mint and lavender still in one hand, the wax cone tucked gently in your pocket, and you inhale one more time. The scents of the night are layered now. Faint traces of blue lotus, saffron, beeswax, cedarwood, and myrrh all mingling into something soft and ancient, like a city humming in its sleep. And now, you've reached your doorway. It's quiet here. The linen curtains drift like breath in the faintest breeze. You duck your head, step inside, and close the door behind you. The darkness welcomes you like an old friend. There's a lamp already burning low on a corner shelf, casting shadows across the wall. You place the wax cone on the small dish beside your bed, watching as the heat begins to coax the first gentle tendrils of scent from its surface. The beeswax softens, and the fragrance blossoms. Subtle, creamy, warm, like almond milk left to rest under the sun. You press the sachet of mint and lavender beneath your pillow, then you lie down. And as your head sinks into the fabric, your body remembers. All those scents, all those people, all those quiet ways of keeping the world at bay. Perfume in ancient Egypt wasn't just adornment. It was armor. It was prayer. It was peace. Historians still debate the function of perfume in this world. Was it purely for ritual, for medicine, for aesthetics? But you know now. It was for sleep. The cone continues to melt, releasing its slow, whispering story into the air. Somewhere far off, a dog barks once, then nothing. Just the night. Just the perfume. Just you. You close your eyes. You are not in Thebes anymore. You are part of it. Its oils, its rituals, its soft tricks against the buzzing insects and restless dreams. You are the guest who walked its streets, who whispered with scribes, gardened under moonlight, laughed with dancers, and learned from women who sculpted scent from wax. You smell like stories now. And slowly, gently, one last thought drifts across your mind like the breeze that slips beneath the linen curtain. If sleep had a smell, this would be it. And now, as the final trace of scent lingers in the air, soft, warm, and comforting, you let your breath slow just a little more. The sounds are distant now, if they exist at all. Your limbs are heavy in the best possible way. That garden dust still clings to your soles, maybe just a little. That wax cone you held, it's melted into the air, into your skin, into this moment. The sachet beneath your pillow hums faintly with mint and lavender, reminding you that you are safe, soothed, and finally still. No more scrolls, no more priests, no more sachets to stuff into sandals or oils to smear under the eyes. Tonight, everything has done its job. Even the bugs have taken the hint. The city of Thebes has gone quiet. Not because the sun has risen, but because you have. You've risen into a quieter place, into the drift between dreams and memory. So now, let your breathing slow. Let the edge of the mat beneath you soften. Let the silence grow thicker, like honey settling in a bowl. You are surrounded by scent, by sleep, by centuries of quiet know-how, whispered in resin and wax and root. There's nothing left to do. Only rest. Let the story end now. Let it carry you. Let it go.